Hey everybody, Chris here again. Welcome back to the channel. Always good to have you with us. So today, have I got a treat for you. We're going to look at my IBM Thinkpad Model T30. And boy, is this thing a beast. This model, hey, wait a minute, this isn't the right machine. Ah, that's better, there it is, my IBM Thinkpad Model T30 in all of its glory. Look at that nice 4:3 screen resolution. No high definition panel here. So anyway, what we're going to do is take an external tour. I'll show you some of the features of it. And from there, I'll show you the software that I've loaded onto it. Let's get started. So first of all, I think we have to look at the keyboard. I think that it's really the keyboard that makes the ThinkPad. And you can't miss it. Dead center in the keyboard is that Trackpoint Mouse. I think Thinkpad might have started this trend, and from there, it continued on. Some other features of the keyboard, you can see that there's actually a trackpad down here as well. And we have our mouse buttons for the trackpad. We also have mouse buttons for the track point and a scroll wheel button, which I think is one of the coolest features of the track point, where you would push this in and then you could push the track point up and down and scroll up and down. Also interesting about this keyboard is the fact that the enter key is a different color, which was customary for ThinkPads of this age. And the keys up top are of a lighter shade, as well as these keys down here. Also very fascinating. Now, there's one other thing about this keyboard that really surprises me. There's no Windows button. I'm not quite sure how we made it to the era of Windows XP without a Windows button, but there isn't one. You'll also notice that we have a ThinkPad button, which is used for launching a specific ThinkPad application, I believe. Next to that are some audio buttons as well. This keyboard also does have the customary stickers, including the Pentium 4 sticker and a Designed for Windows XP sticker, though I think this has seen a little bit of wear, but you can definitely see that this machine was designed for Windows XP. It has the sticker to prove it. Next, we have the ThinkPad screen, and you'll notice that, as I said in the intro, it is a 4:3 screen. No high-res panel here, though it is quite a good panel, as we will see later. We also do have our hinges up here for opening the screen. You basically push out like this, and those release, and then you can open up the screen. Also on the screen are some status panel lights, like a battery light, as well as a sleep light, and of course the model number over here, T30. Moving to the side, you can see that we have a vent here for exhaust to let some of that heat out, as well as some PC card slots, or I guess they're card bus slots technically, PCMCIA, as well as audio, line in, and microphone jacks. Coming to the front here, we have two speakers. That's pretty much it. On this side, we have a power LED and a CDRW DVD drive, as well as this little button here, which I was wondering what that's all about. I found this little slider, which I couldn't move until I removed this screw here, and now I can pop that, and that gives me a little handle, and I can pull the optical drive out. So there it is. Moving to the back, we have a serial port, a parallel port, a VGA out port, as well as a modem and Ethernet jack, two USB ports, S-video, and power. Looking at the bottom of the machine, we have a lot of goodies. Up here we have a expansion port for plugging the ThinkPad into a dock. Over here we have our sticker. This is a ThinkPad Type 2366 and happens to be a T30. We have a battery pack that we can remove. And under the battery pack is a Cmos battery. Now this Cmos battery is basically a 2032 cell, I believe, that has been shrink wrapped, and that way you can pay a premium for it. There you have it. Down here we have a memory slot for putting in memory, and you'll notice something that is actually very characteristic about the T30s, in that one of the slots is bad. These machines are notorious for SIM slots failing, and that's no different on this machine. One of them has failed. But we do have a 1 GB chip in that slot. Over here, we have a wireless card. And there's a reason I have this panel off. More on that in a minute. And over here we also have a fan, which is currently off, that you can see peeking through here. Now on startup, we do get a couple of errors. The first being this 271, check date and time settings. That's because the Cmos battery I showed you a minute ago is completely dead. And we also have this 1802 error, which says that we have an unauthorized network card plugged in, and we are to remove the mini PCI network card in order to boot. So the way these machines worked is your network card had to be on an approved list. And in this case, the network card that's in here is aftermarket and not on an approved list. So let's go ahead and power the machine down, and I will take the card out and I will show it to you. As you might have seen in the earlier shots, there it is. There's a gigabyte card, and apparently it is not approved. With this removed, we can now boot the machine. And on subsequent boot, it's actually put us directly into the BIOS, so we can explore this a little bit. We can look under the config section, and you can see there's some network settings there for changing your LAN settings. There's also an IBM security chip setting. Also the serial port, which is disabled for some reason. I think we could go ahead and enable that. Infrared, which is also disabled. The parallel port, which is enabled. PCI IRQ settings, all set to 11. USB set for using USB BIOS, which I think allows you to do things like boot from CD-ROMs, maybe keyboard, things along those lines. Floppy drive settings to enable floppy drive connections. Keyboard and mouse settings to enable the Trackpoint and Touchpad, as well as the F and key lock if you want to set that, or numlock. Display settings, if you want to choose your default display, if you want to do PCI or AGP, as well as booting. I guess you can choose if you want to boot to an external monitor or the LCD or otherwise. Power settings. Lots of power settings. It's a laptop. Some alarm settings for power. And some memory settings if you want to turn on the extended memory test and extend your boot time. We also have an option to set the date and time, as well as a password. We can also set some startup options for choosing which devices we boot. I'm not 100% sure what this IBA 4.1.07 slot 0240 is. I Googled it and I am none the wiser. And then you've got your other boot mode settings down here. And back on the main screen, you can see some information about this machine, including its serial number and system board serial number, the type of CPU, which is a 2 gigahertz Pentium 4 with 1 gig of memory, as well as the UUID for the machine and the MAC address. So that's kind of neat that you can see all those settings there. We'll go ahead and restart and save changes. And on subsequent boot, we now just have that 271 error, and we can press the escape key to bypass that. And I've actually loaded a special utility partition onto this machine, which is MS-DOS, which will run a program to attempt to fix that 1802 error we saw for the network card. I can't guarantee that we're going to fix it because I actually have to power the machine off to put the card back in, and the Cmos battery is so dead. But let's see what happens. Okay, the utility has been run and the 1802 no error bit is set. Let's see if we can put the card back in and boot the machine with the unapproved card installed. And fortunately, we did luck out. We no longer get an 1802 error message, and we can just press escape and boot into Windows XP. So here we are, booted into Windows XP. Isn't that nice? And I'm going to take a few minutes and show you some of the Thinkpad specific items that are installed here. I basically did a fresh install of Windows XP Professional and downloaded all of the drivers associated with the T30 and installed them. I'll provide a link in the description below. Just for a quick peek, you can see the drivers that I did install were battery, chipset, some configuration programs, as well as an easy eject utility, modem, also installed the .NET Framework 3.0, power, Trackpoint, video, and wireless. And there were a few things I didn't install, which include BIOS settings, the LAN drivers, since the LAN driver was already installed, as well as the ThinkVantage program. When I went to install this, I ended up with all kinds of errors. I think this is more geared towards Windows 7, so as such, I did not install that. Heading down to the system tray here, we can explore some features. First, let's look at this battery option, and you'll notice it's not the battery maximizer, it's the battery maximizer. So, isn't that cute? In any event, it looks like you have some options here to change your battery life. Apparently green is good, and little did I know that purple is bad. I always thought red was bad. Apparently purple is really, really bad, so avoid purple at all costs. Anyway, you can go in here and create a scheme. Of course, we want to be super power savers because, well, our battery doesn't even work. So we want to save as much power as possible. Okay, that's a joke. I realize my jokes aren't getting any better. But we can go over here and look and see what the plugged-in power settings are for this. Apparently, saving lots of power means the system never goes to standby, never turns off the monitor, has the LCD at brightness level 7, never turns off the hard disk, and the CPU speed is set to maximum. I fail to see how that is super power saver, but it's okay. Let's just go ahead and save that and move on. So down here next to the battery, we have our network system tray icon, and that's no different than what you'd otherwise see in Windows XP, but I popped it open just to show you the two network cards we have installed, the Gigabyte wireless card I showed you earlier, as well as the local area connection, which looks to be a 100 megabits per second Intel Pro /100VE network card. And next we have the wireless network system tray icon. You can see it's found the wireless networks in my house. Probably has not found anything outside of my house because I have the antennas disconnected. Albeit, I'm very impressed that I'm getting a signal read of 5 bars, despite the fact that we don't have antennas connected, though, full disclosure, the wireless access point is about 2 feet below the ThinkPad at this point. Next, we have volume controls, which is your standard Windows XP volume control settings. And we've got it set pretty high, and you can hear it kind of beep as we change the volume level. Next is the Safely Remove Hardware button. And then we have our SoundMax control panel for setting up our SoundMax audio, including noise reduction. Apparently you can click here to upgrade it. I guess you could actually buy some sort of additional noise reduction software. Of course, we're not connected to the network right now. Interesting how it takes you to Andrea's Electronics, or Andrea Electronics. Very interesting. And of course, we can also set up a microphone or a headset for the microphone. And we can show SoundMax on the taskbar, or as I call it, the system tray. As we explore the Start menu, you'll see one of the options that's immediately visible is ThinkPad configuration. And this is a cool little utility. You'll notice as you go in here that you can see a picture of the ThinkPad right away. And look just how purple that enter key is. I find that fascinating. And there's a variety of other options up here, including the status of the different components you have. And as you mouse over these components, you'll see the picture change to show you more about them. So I imagine that since we don't have any PC cards installed, that's why the PC card slots is not green. And we don't have accessibility options on either. But I find this pretty neat that it'll actually show you the different elements as you mouse over them. So let's look at the display. And from here, we can see we do have 2 monitors connected. I think this primary monitor is probably monitor 1, so the ThinkPad display is monitor 2. And if this is accurate, then that screen can go all the way up to 2048 by 1536, which I find fascinating. I don't know if it's true or not, but that's pretty cool if it is. Looking at some of the other options here, we can go and look at the internal modem, for example. You can enable or disable it. You can choose which resources it has. You can go to the PC card slots, and I guess it'll show you the safely remove hardware dialog. We didn't look at LCD, but you can turn on the brightness when running on batteries or screen expansion, and this just takes you to the display properties. Power management will take you to the different power schemes of the system, though I am much more of a fan of the maximizer, but that's fine. Serial port settings for changing if it's enabled in the resources. PCI settings. So a lot of the settings that you could otherwise change in the BIOS, it appears you can also change here. And add-on devices. So there's our little gigabyte unauthorized card, but it is showing up here. And our Intel card as well. Over here you have your touchpad settings. We can go into the mouse properties. I'd certainly love to disable tap to click, but I don't think I've got the right drivers installed for that. I couldn't find any. Here's your display settings that we saw earlier. Parallel port, I guess you can choose bidirectional, ECP, EPP, or unidirection. Infrared for infrared settings. Audio for audio settings. Trackpoint. And accessibility options. So that's kind of neat. You have all these different options there. And across the top here, you can choose other things like switch to the LCD, switch to the LCD and CRT. If we hooked in that S-video connection on the back, we could get TV only or both LCD and TV. So you could actually project to a TV if you hook in S-video, which is kind of neat. And I guess you've got some other things here for changing your battery performance. And more power settings over here, which is pretty awesome. And you can launch the device manager if you want to look at what's in there. We can definitely do that. You can see the disk drive, the display adapter, which is an ATI Mobility Radeon 7500, as well as some of the other drivers here as well. Your sound driver, which is SoundMax, and other system devices, of which there are many. This is based upon the 82801 chipset, it appears, and your USB controllers as well. So that's pretty much the Thinkpad configuration, and there is a help file if you want to go explore that and learn more about it as well. Going back to the start menu, you can see a couple of other special programs that were installed here at the bottom, including Access IBM, which has that battery maximizer. We have our SoundMax drivers for our SoundMax control panel that we saw, and we have our ThinkVantage software, including the configuration utility we saw and the easy eject utility. And I guess what this allows you to do is to do an easy eject of your device in that multi-bay connection on the right. So that's kind of cool if you wanted to switch out and install some other device over there. Beyond that, we're really just looking at your typical Windows XP. And as noted, this is a 2 gigahertz processor. It looks like it's currently running at 717 megahertz, so it must have the speed step concept installed, if I recall. And it has 1 gigabyte of memory. And there you have it, Windows XP Professional, version 2002, Service Pack 2. But yes, other than that, we just have our standard XP programs on here. You could certainly come in here and play a game of pinball, which is always fun. Turned up the sound there a little bit. You can hear that this machine has some pretty nice loud speakers, maybe a little too loud, which is not something that's all too common in laptops. So that's kind of a breath of fresh air if you think about it. And as you can see, I'm not very good at pinball. One more thing I wanted to show you is the panel when not connected to the monitor. And here you can see it. And it looks like a really nice panel, actually, with a pretty nice resolution. 1400 by 1050. That's pretty high spec for the day, as I seem to recall. But yeah, it looks pretty nice. Definitely wanted to show you that. All right, well, that's what I have for you today. Hope you enjoyed the video. It's a cool little machine. Definitely subscribe to the channel. There's more content to come. Ring that notification bell and you'll be notified when that new content gets uploaded. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If not, give it a thumbs down and tell me why in the comments. That helps us make videos better. Otherwise, that's what I have for you today. Can't wait till we see you next time. Bye-bye.